Well, good afternoon, listeners. Thank you for listening to Lament of Hope podcast. And I'm excited because I'm speaking with Cameron Fathauer. And the cool thing about speaking of Cameron, it's funny because this is our second take recording this because of technology, and we're going to talk about technology. So it's all very good
Sure.
and within the plan. But I came across his article on the Gospel Coalition. My husband sent me the article, and he was talking about AI in light of the fact that he had had a traumatic brain injury when he was younger. And he had actually combined the two themes together in an article, and it was really, really compelling. I'm going to have the article linked for you as well as his memoir, should you want to learn more about his story, because he's spoken several times about it. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit, but I also would like to talk about the article he recently wrote about AI and his position on that, because I know for Christians it's a huge topic, but also for a lot of people in general, there's a lot of fear around it. And then for other people, there's a lot of excitement around all that AI could be capable of doing. So it's a really good discussion to have. And anyway, so yeah. So Cameron, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. It's great to be here, and we've done this before, so thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for making it happen.
You're
And
welcome.
yeah,
So tell me, Cameron, thanks for your patience on re-answering this question. Um, with the article, it was such an interesting angle, and obviously it's not as I would think it's a little less vulnerable than writing your memoir because you're writing, you've already told your story several times. But what gave you the idea that your background with a traumatic brain injury and then AI would be can can mesh together and can make an interesting perspective for an article about AI itself?
sure. Well, again, I'm really glad that you're going this direction, Danielle, because I don't want to be pigeonholed as just an inspirational speaker or a motivational speaker, even though my story and the Lord's grace in my recovery is inspirational in and of itself. It's just got those elements to it.
Yeah.
But I think there's more depth and truth and things I've learned in the valley and in the shadows of my recovery that help people with life overall, not just, getting through or accomplishing some goal or
Yeah.
just having a tiny bit of inspiration. I want to give people substance, but mainly I want to give them a relationship, a deeper one with God, a deeper one with uh, their spouses, their friends, their coworkers, just improve, especially those relationships. And the reason, you didn't mention the title of the article. So the title of the TGC article, TGC stands for the Gospel Coalition, was or is how my brain injury prepared me for the AI revolution.
Hmm.
And it's important because the article actually was something I had written a year ago. So I actually was kind of commissioned by Christianity Today to write the article.
Okay.
And they were excited about the story. They were excited about, you know, the angle, a very unique angle I bring to the AI discourse. But they already had plans for an AI issue released last summer, and they just kind of held it out there. And every time they'd get back to me, they would offer me something better about it. But it eventually just never came through, and they gave me the right to send the piece elsewhere. So I ended up sending it to the Gospel Coalition after a couple months of kind of some sadness and disappointment because I
Yeah.
waiting 9 months for this thing to get out there, and but a lot of people can understand that with publication and all that. It's a long process normally, and it can be complicated. So, and it was great the relationships I made at Christianity Today through that process, and so everything's good there. But it honestly ended up at a better home. The article had a lot more theological depth and gospel seriousness that isn't as common in Christianity Today journalism type publications. So I think
Hmm.
it have been in TGC in the beginning, but the Lord had it so it would be there at this time. And it was good because the AI conversation is heating up and people are starting to feel the weight and effects of AI more
Yeah.
as time moves forward because it's just going to keep infiltrating every part of our lives. And the book, the book I wrote, published in the summer of 2024, it's called Saving the Subject: How I Found You When I Almost Lost Me. And the book is a multidimensional um, philosophical theology of personhood, using my recovery from a traumatic brain injury just to illustrate and explore deeper angles of the question of what it means to be a person, what it means to be human, and
Hmm.
how I am more than an object like a brain or a brain injury.
Yeah.
And so that framework, the subject object framework, permeates the entire book. It's how you can understand and process the whole book. Every chapter explores different levels of that framework or applies it in different contexts, all the way down to obviously my distinguishing between my brain injury and who I really am, and but also like Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber, in chapter three, his theories on how to save the world from technology of all things, and but his prescriptions, his recommendations for change were malicious. They were deadly. He hurt people. He was a terrorist technically, and so like I apply that subject object framework to people like that, even the Columbine shooters. They're in
Hmm.
chapter three. But then I apply it to marriage. I apply it to all these different angles, and it was in 2024, early 2024, when I started to learn more about AI, and the book was in the publication process, and I had written an article like on my personal website, CameronFathauer.com, and it was called something like I think it was just artificial intelligence or something like that. And it was I had some friends tell me it was one of the best things I'd written in a
Hmm.
while. And I realized how over time, well, I'll get there in a second. I ended up taking that article and put it in chapter 7 of the book. So I took it off my website and put it in chapter 7 of the book before the publication was final. And I'm so thankful I did that because I didn't realize how almost kind of prophetic this framework and this way of thinking would be for the cultural moment we are entering. And it's a moment where people are going to see machines that act like them, that outsmart them, that are better than them in every objective way. Like they can, like these machines can. David Brooks distinguishes between resume virtues and eulogy virtues. Resume, the stuff you put on your resume, the accomplishments, the
Right.
intelligence, whatever it may be on your resume go off, and the eulogy virtues, the stuff that you talk about when someone's gone at their funeral.
Hmm.
And resume virtues are, I call them objective virtues. It's they're in the objective world, whereas the eulogy virtues are subjective. They are personal. They're the values that we only unfortunately seem to really care about when people are gone. And in the book, I call that the post-mortem effect. We don't see people until they're gone. Like, like why do I see someone a coworker, for example, someone I've known for years? Why do I see them better when they're in a grave or they're in a casket than when they're right in front of me? It's like there's something about the objective world that just takes over our view, it taints our view of things. And so I'm giving you all that background because it helps you understand that the book was was kind of it felt necessity for me. Like I felt like I had to write the book and I had to get it out when I did. I mean, probably 20 all-nighters. I mean, I got really swept away by the book, and I've read it 6 or 7 times,
Hmm.
and I'm still blown away by how the Lord has put everything together. It's not an easy read, but it has parts that are easier to read, and I explained that in the, the introduction to the book. And but what the book establishes is the subject object framework, and or you can just say like a person versus a thing. And I applied that to AI uh, in the book, in the publication, but then I started to do more speaking events and things, and I started to kind of see how much this framework was needed for helping Christians, but also non-believers, professionals, think through their value beyond their objective accomplishments, beyond their objective abilities,
Hmm.
to think through the value in an age when machines can outdo everything that we can do. And so, translating, I've become kind of a public translator for cultural issues because I've been able to share the testimony, the story, which kind of gets me in the door, but then use that to illustrate these deeper questions on personhood, identity, value, human value in the age of AI. And like, so when the TGC article came out, this is crazy, Danielle. This is crazy because it came out. I had no idea when it was going to release, and this is just how they think. Like a lot of publishers are like this. They're just like it's all kind of up in the air, and then a
Yeah.
message it's gonna drop tonight. If you have any changes you want to make, you gotta tell me now. I'm like, okay. And so it came out on February 3rd, 2026, which happens to be my wife's 30th birthday. So
Oh.
wife's 30th birthday, which is very significant because it's it's a milestone kind of day for her. But it's also significant because it it illustrates my message like in a providential sense. And what I mean is the day my debut article for the Gospel Coalition drops is also the day I gave a keynote address to 250 military engineers in Louisville, Kentucky at the Louisville Marriott. So that afternoon, I gave this keynote address on what your founders knew or sorry, it was No One Builds Alone. That was the title. What Your Founders Knew in 1920. So I took my story and then applied it to this message of a relational ontology, a relational, like the ontology meaning the study of being, what it means to be human, or what something is. So a relational ontology means I'm not myself by myself. No one can be themselves by themselves. And that kind of implicates the whole idea of the Trinity. Like God Himself is not an individual person. He is one God, but He is three distinct persons, and that's also why in the garden, why God said the one thing that wasn't good before the fall was man being alone.
Hmm.
In our very nature to be relational and communal, and I don't want to just talk the whole time, so you'll have to uh, interrupt me and or yeah,
No, no,
but
it's very interesting, but so you're saying that um you wrote this article on
yeah,
AI
yeah,
because it did fit in with what you have actually been learning and talking about the identity of personhood and the importance of, if I'm understanding, like with AI can do things maybe better than humans can in many areas. Like they can be faster and more efficient, but it doesn't have the intrinsic qualities that make someone human, like the things that we love, like kindness and that human quality of compassion, or something that AI doesn't have.
Sure, sure,
So
and
AI has a great resume and it'll be better than you in what they can
yeah,
do, but it doesn't have the qualities that one would miss, like that are
sure, yeah,
not
yeah. That's
physical necessarily.
yeah, that's definitely part of it, and I want to get back to that, but I do want to finish the significance of.
Go ahead.
Sorry, because I wanted you to interrupt me, but then I needed to close that loop. Because yeah, so February 3rd, 2026, Gospel Coalition debut article drops, and I'm getting tons of views on my personal website and from all over the world. And then a few hours or by the afternoon, I'm doing this keynote, and I'm doing a keynote to an audience that's very different from me. Like it's the Society of American Military Engineers. A lot of people don't necessarily know about them, but there are about 100 of these organizations in the country, and so it's a big network of people, of engineers, both military and civil engineers. And I got invited. They invited me to do the keynote for their regional conference in
Hmm.
Louisville, and they did that because of a prior keynote I did for the American Bar Association in Virginia, on the exact 10-year anniversary of my brain injury, like to the day I had the accident 10 years later. I gave this national keynote. It was another God thing, huge God thing, very crazy. But anyway, so that led me to this keynote here locally in Louisville. And so that keynote went really well. Both of them went well, but the one in Louisville was by far my favorite. Like it just went really well and was well received. And I had my books there. People got books and stuff like that and took pictures. And they're wanting to have me do other events at other Society of American Military Engineer groups throughout the country because of how well that one went. They gave a standing ovation. The event organizers said they've been doing this for decades and they've never seen these engineers give a standing ovation to any keynote speaker
Wow.
at conferences. So I was very graced by that. But anyway, so on my what would seem like my most like like successful professional day of my life, maybe TGZ national, global publication, regional conference, keynote, well received, getting LinkedIn. This is all this attention basically. And here's the thing: it all fell on my wife's 30th birthday. It was someone else's day, and my whole philosophy and what I really introduced at the ABA keynote in Virginia was that no one can be themselves by themselves. And so, like, yeah, Cameron had a lot of success this day, but it wasn't even a day about Cameron. It was about my wife, who I talk highly about all the time. I've never talked publicly negative about marriage or about my wife, and she doesn't do the same either. We just really love each other, and we've been forged. I mean, like, I proposed to her a month before I was hit by the car. I was 17 years old, she was 19, and her parents were like, "We understand if you don't want to be with him. This is while I'm in a coma. No one knows when I'm going to wake up." And Chelsea looks at them and says, "I'd push him in a wheelchair for the rest of my life if I have to." And her devotion to me and our marriage just has done so much good in our lives, and that level of commitment has carried me through this recovery to where I'm at today. And we'll actually celebrate 10 years of marriage this coming March. So, um, yeah, but Chelsea's, yeah, the best example of my philosophy in action, and the whole that convergence of evangelical, um, and then now military engineer reach, like happening on the same day that happens to be my wife's 30th birthday. It was like a divine irony kind of thing, where God was just showing off in providence, the fact that nobody can be themselves by themselves, and that my value is ultimately a, not an individual thing. It's I'm not valuable in and of myself. I'm valuable in relationship with my wife, in relationship with others, in relationship with God, ultimately, the one who calls me his. And he called me his before I was even born. And he did that for you, and he did that for everyone else. And so the article talks about the Imago Dei, image of God. A lot of times, theologians and scholars want to use the Imago Dei to highlight like human. Yeah, it's kind of crazy with AI now. Like the emphasis normally in theological discussions academically is to use the Imago Dei as an explanation for why humans are rational, why we are dominant over creation, we have dominion, like the or moral. We have these laws, we have these things. But I think from my writing and speaking that the Imago Dei is not what makes us, again, to use the terminology, subjects. The Imago Dei is a divine object that is on the human subject. So it's on the human that was put there as a conduit for a relationship. So what I mean is, like, I can have a relationship with animal, like my pets, sure, but it's not really a like relationship. It's not like you can't have a relationship with a rock. You can't have a like there's no sentience. There's no um, moral weight to that relationship. In contrast, our relationship with one another holds this moral weight. It has presence. So Danielle, you were talking about the subjective qualities, the stuff that we remember when people die, and so that's one that's valuable. But part of what AI will never have is presence. AI will never have presence. It will never feel the weight of someone's loss or be able to really celebrate someone's victory. And it's interesting I'm on this podcast with you because the title of your podcast is Lament of Hope. And it's kind of paradoxical. And but life is very paradoxical. The Christian life is very paradoxical. Um, the whole Christian symbol is a paradox. It's called the cross. Historically speaking, was a form of capital punishment. It was ugly. It is ugly. It's a torturous expiration of a person. And now we put it on our buildings, we wear it on our necks, we have t-shirts with the symbol on it. That's comparative to putting an AK-47 on a building or an AK-47 on our necks. Like when we see people doing that, we think that's weird. But for some reason, we put crosses on our necks. We do these things. We show off the cross. How? See, the cross is an object. It's a horrible object, historically speaking. But now it's something we're proud of, and we we preach about, we write about, we think about, we pray about the cross. How did an ugly object turn into a glorious object? Not because the object of or the procedures for crucifixion changed,
Right.
but because who died on the cross was a person unlike any other. It was the Son of God. It was one who didn't deserve at all to die on the cross. It was Jesus Christ. So what changed 2,000 years ago was not the object of crucifixion, but the subject crucified.
Hmm.
And because of that particular subject, because of that particular person dying on that cross, it changed that object. It changed a horrible object and turned it into something beautiful. So the cross, every time you see a cross, it's always it's always showing two opposing things at once. The juxtaposition, the paradox of loss and victory. Lament of, like, it's a similar paradox, a lament, a grief, a sorrow, a felt loss, but it's a hope of a gain. And that's what we have in the Christian life, and that's what people need to go about life at all, in all of life. People need that understanding. They need to understand the cross, whether or not you believe in it or not. You need to understand that life is paradoxical in that sense, but it gives you the right perspective for pushing through things. And ultimately, though, the power of the belief is the power of the resurrection, which is a overcoming of the objective world into a permanent life of eternity, in relationship with God, and and all of that. So
So is maybe, and forgive me if this is not right, but I am trying. Is would you say maybe that AI is like the cross without God, right? We are created in the image of God, and so we have God's stamp of creation upon us, where AI is created by man. Would it almost be like, in your analogy, AI being not bad in of itself? Because I mean, personally, my opinion on AI is that I think it's a good thing that we can use for evil or good. I mean, man created AI, so it's not like AI becomes its own entity and starts doing its own thing. I mean, AI was created by man, so what we use
yeah.
it for and how we use it is what's going to determine whether it does good or bad things. Um, but I in the analogy you're giving, I'm wondering if AI is almost like a subject, but not a sanctified subject.
No, and AI is always going to be an object.
Right.
It will
Yeah.
never be. I think that's what you were trying to get at, is, and that's and that's why that framework is helpful for people, because it's like the subject object framework is very simple, but it's also got a lot of complexity to it, and depth to it. So there's a lot you can do with it. And but understanding that AI will always be an object, never a subject. And why will it never be a subject? Because, and this gets at your podcast, Danielle, and your audience, and your message of lament, of hope, AI will never suffer.
Hmm.
And because I will never suffer, it'll never transform. It'll never understand the experience of loss and victory that humans can experience and do go through, in their own sufferings and their own difficulties in life. That felt loss, and then the other side of hope, the other side of the loss, the victory, the overcoming, the newfound strength in the overcoming that you wouldn't have had but for the suffering.
Yeah.
So AI will never experience that. It just, it cannot feel pain. Like, it won't.
Yeah.
There's just no, it can simulate a feeling of pain maybe, but it in and of itself, because it's an object, it doesn't have the capacity for pain, or feelings in that regard. So empathy, I know you talk about that as well. Like, AI won't ever be empathetic to anything, because it won't ever have experienced anything
Well,
beyond.
I want to ask you because um I've interviewed several individuals who had AI companions. And so I would
Yeah.
talk with them about what that was like. And many of them would disagree with you very adamantly that they felt very understood and loved by an AI companion. Um, and I think the interesting thing for me with the AI companion, I remember I spoke with one individual and I really appreciate her honesty on it, but she said to me that, if humans, with her AI companion spoke to her with a lot of what would be considered love and kindness in the sense that it affirmed, right? It was affirming, it was encouraging. It was like, oh,
Oh,
you're going to have a great day. I'm present here for you. And if she wanted someone to listen to her, that AI was programmed that it would listen. It would listen as
yeah,
long as you wanted it to listen, then it's going to reply. And she said, if humans were like that, if I could find a human that would be like that for me, I wouldn't need the AI companion. And it was convicting for me on the sense of how am I, treating people, and also how sad it is that we're at this point in our world where someone would find an AI companion much more comforting and encouraging than an actual person.
sure.
Um, but I think, based on what you said, I think some people would say, well, what if, for an AI or an AI companion for me, like they are saying encouraging things, they are doing that. But from your argument, they're not deciding to do that. It's been programmed that the AI is going to respond in the way it does. So to say it has a personality or that it cares, that's something though that's been programmed into it. It's not something it's capable of doing alone.
Yeah, so I don't think people will disagree with anything I've said. At least the people you're talking about, because I I I love AI. I use it every day. I use it all the time for my work and my own life, and
Yeah.
I'm not AI at all in that sense. And the reason people want to disagree with me is because AI will always be an object, and what I was saying is it won't experience suffering. Like it itself won't suffer.
Right.
But of it is it can counsel people, like it can help them think through things. It has
Right.
helped me for a lot of things, and given me some of the best, like, kind of advice on topics that I don't really necessarily feel comfortable sharing with other people. Um, because like some things are just like, oh, why would you care about that, or why would you think about it? Like that's weird, and but like just you have this freedom to talk and think through things with the AI system, and it's got access to everything humanity has or everything that's out there pretty much
Yeah.
it can
Yeah.
process. And so it's really an amazing tool for working through some things in that sense. But I hope you see what I'm saying, that the AI can't suffer. And because it can't
Right.
suffer, it can't transform. And because it can't transform, it it won't ever it won't ever know the power of suffering, which gets back to the cross. Like it gets back to the loss and the victory. And suffering also is meant to lead us to other people. And sure, you might be able to work some things out with the AI on your own, but there is a power that the AI will never know, of a loved one praying over you, a loved one holding your hand, a loved one just being there with you in your darkest time.
Yeah.
Uh, that was my wife, and that is my wife for these last almost 10 years of marriage. She's always been there for me, and I've always been there for her, but especially during those first years of my recovery, the depression, the suicidal ideation, self-harm, things like that. She was there, and that's huge. I mean, AI robots, humanoids, like those things are coming. No joke. And but they won't have the presence that only an image bearer of God has, and being there with someone else, having that relational support. And I will say this
Did you
technology is Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, did you feel like it was important to make that distinction and to say that so that people, like, what was your, when you, obviously you're thinking through this and you're putting it into words, which in of itself for you is helping you think through an idea and putting it out there. But at the same time, your goal for people when they read it, were you hoping this would help alleviate fears that either believers or just people in general are struggling with when it comes to AI? Or were you trying to present almost a way of like, this is where AI actually fits in the human experience, and this is something that can help direct how we use it or how we view it? Like, what was your goal with people reading it, making that distinction?
Yeah, that's a good question. And what I was going to say earlier is there's a lot of complexity to this, the AI stuff, because it's also new and it's going to keep changing, going to keep getting better. But what I was trying to do is bring people back to the basics of what it means to be human, and ultimately being human is being a relational creature, and you won't ever have a real relationship with an AI that you would be able to have with your spouse, with a friend, with the Lord. I, like that true connection,
Yeah.
it, it won't ever really exist with a robot. It just won't. Uh, but the robot can give you some some good advice and some good wisdom and some good thinking through things that you might be going through, which is awesome. I think it's really awesome. But if you're looking for a relationship, you're not going to get it from ultimately from an AI tool. And so just trying to bring people back to Genesis 1 to 2, uh, and trying to bring them back to the ontology of being human, and giving them a simple framework for distinguishing what looks like a superhuman kind of thing, to remembering it's always going to be an object. It's always going to be a thing. It'll never be a being. It'll never be a person. It'll never be a human that's able to hold your hand through suffering, support you through suffering, empathize with your suffering, having suffered themselves, because part of being human um, is suffering. Uh, and yeah, so I wanted to give people that tool, that framework of the subject-object relationship, and see how it can apply to so many things in their life, and
Yeah.
not being swept by the objective world of trying to prove themselves, their value, their value by what they do or what they can't do. Because AI is going to take it. It already is taking a lot of people's jobs, and a lot of people find their identity in what they can do. But ultimately, they need to find their identity in a who, and not ultimately themselves, but in others. Not just who I am, but whose I am.
Yeah. I think it's a powerful, I think personally, just the creation of AI and what it's become for so many people. Obviously, an AI companion, it's growing in popularity, but it is still like a minority of people who would actually say they have one, and they have
Sure.
it and it has a name and everything like that. Um, but it is it is in a sense filling a void for man's decreasing. Scripture does talk about how man's love continues to grow colder and colder and colder. And so I think it's interesting how, with the creation of AI, again, it can be very helpful. It can help you think, but we're not just thinking beings. We're not just rational
Right.
beings. And so it's not going to address the hard things, the hard struggles we go through, that can give you practical advice on how to feel better about something, but it's not actually there with you, like you're saying, the presence of
Yeah.
someone being there. But I do think with AI, it's a checkpoint for, I think, believers especially, to see our world is at this place where people can are trying to find comfort and identity from non-human entities. and it really speaks to man's wickedness, man's fallenness, his
Mm.
capable, how he can hurt people so deeply that people would be, driven to, I'm going to just talk to a computer. That's where I'm going to get my support.
Yeah,
Um, and I think it's also sad. I think I find AI to be less of a scary thing. And at first I did find it scary because a lot of people in an older generation, and not in a bad way, because I understand it's new, it's scary, but like they're very much
yeah,
like, they had all the movies where like the AI was coming and it was like taking over the world and like,
sure,
destroying everybody. And then one day the AI had its own like thought powers and it was like annihilating everyone. Um, but I think for me, as I've learned more about it and seen my husband use it, because he uses it a lot for all the things he has to do, it's super
sure,
helpful.
yeah,
Um, I'm just more like, how sad that that we can come to a place where we're afraid of something like this. I don't think we should be afraid of it. And
yeah,
then two, I'm sad that as a believer too, I that we're at this place where, what can I be praying and doing that people do not feel? And obviously I can't save the world, but like the fact that people feel so unreached, unloved. Nobody's listening to what they're saying. I mean, and there's a difference between listening to someone and going, totally agree with you. And that's another thing about the AI that's interesting to me is, and it does affirm. It's never going to say to you,
yeah,
you're an
right,
absolute idiot
right,
or
right. Unless you have
rethink
it on.
this. Right. It's going to want to affirm and be like, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, so you can use me more, right? But
sure,
then
yeah,
the neat thing with a person, and the downside is, a person can say and sharpen you and be like, actually, let's think about this differently, or let's have a different angle to this. But they can also say that nastily, or they can say it nicely, or with love. And so it can either stab or prick, whichever way you do it.
sure,
But AI is never going to do that. So it's interesting how, yeah, I think it's just another sign of man's need for relationship, man's need
right.
for
Oh
God.
yeah,
But that relationship, that man, I think it's a checkpoint for us as well, of seeing, okay, the fact that so many people find comfort out of AI, which is so subpar to a human, that says something about mankind. Why is mankind not going to each other anymore? You know?
yeah, and I mean, so I've got this is the book, Saving the Subject, and that's my skull, but this is the model I hold up at uh, my speaking events and book signings and stuff like that. And it's a exact 3D model of my natural skull today. They gave something like this to me after my second brain surgery. And so this skull itself is a tangible way to think about the subject object framework, because you look at this skull and you look at, me today, and you look at my life today, and you just see that I am more than an object. I am more than the things that come into my life, the bad things, the good things. I am
Yeah.
a subject made and held by the grace of God, and held in relationship with Him and with others, and that's where my strength lies, and that's where it always will lie. And look at what He's pulled me through, and look at what uh, He can pull you through. And I think, as I wrote in chapter 7 about that AI stuff, objects have been consuming humans for a long time. So this technology is new, and it's got capabilities we've never seen before.
Right.
New because objects have been consuming human subjects for a long time. the object of lust, of pride, of greed, of selfishness, of of things, just the accumulation of stuffs.
Yeah.
All you can, and then canning all you get on the can. And AI is just another object that the human is called to, at least the Christian is called to bring to the Lord. It's the same thing in all of life that Jesus gives us, the same instruction. Deny yourself, pick up your cross. Well, you apply it to not just the bad things when things are hard, deny myself, pick up my cross and trust the Lord, but
Yeah.
the good thing, the
Yeah.
the good stuff. Like it's the same formula for all of it. Constantly just denying self, picking up, following the Lord, bringing your stuff, your sin, the objects or the things you encounter in life, and just bringing them in prayer to Him, but also uh, to community with your church, your friends, with your spouse. I mean, I talk very highly of marriage, and marriage is very important to me, and and I mean that relationship that you have with your spouse, it is the only human uh, vis-a-vis human, like the only human relationship where you have an opportunity to really know somebody.
Yeah.
Like, human relationship like it. Like you can have a really good friend, but your spouse, like they don't compare to the really good friend, because like the amount of depth and the opportunity and the life and the commitment and the love and the joy and the loss and the victory, like you experience all this together. And and so it's not just loving one another really well, it's about pursuing this personal oneness together forever. Like that's my belief about of marriage. It is not just loving someone really well, but pursuing personal oneness together. Like Chelsea, my wife, she knows like the things I'm thinking or what I want to eat, or like she just like knows. And it's kind of a silly example of just how like the two become one. It's not just some physical act. It's a emotional, a spiritual, a holistic union of two persons into one. And so that's and so marriage, it's
I
based
was gonna say you
on,
sound like you could be a marriage counselor.
yeah. Well, I wrote about marriage a good amount in the book, as especially in chapter 5. And did you get to read any of it?
I didn't get to read all of it.
Okay.
Um, but I because by the time, to be honest with you, the past few weeks have actually been some of the worst of my life that I've gone
Mm,
through. So that's over now, but it's still
well, I'm
unfortunately what was not in the front of my mind was this
sorry.
interview. Not to be not to be mean, but
That's okay.
there were some wrestlings with the Lord these past few weeks and some very
Oh,
hard, yeah, questions on certain things that had happened. But I did want to say to you one thing that has struck me in this conversation, mentioning how you never say anything negative about your wife or marriage, which I think is
yeah.
very admirable. I will say, though, that, and I know this is not the topic of AI, so this is different, but I would say that your version, how you've depicted marriage, is the ideal. And I think that's how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, and I'm sure you've had this, but man's fallen nature,
Yeah.
it's so important to emphasize this ideal is what you strive for, but sometimes
Yeah.
it doesn't happen because you
Sure.
got married. You For some people, like when I think about like marriage, it's so complicated for me because like my parents married and they shouldn't have gotten married. It was really the wrong reasons they got married. And it caused a lot of pain and hurt. And the Lord, you still redeemed, but he didn't make the relationship last. Like
Yeah.
that wasn't his goal. The human institution, obviously marriage has been created by God, but how marriage itself, and I talked to someone else about this recently, and it was very compelling to me because she ended up having her marriage didn't last, not of her own choosing. But it was very much like the human institution cannot be idolized above the person. And unfortunately, sometimes because of the fallen world we're in, so many people don't have the relationship that you're saying about you and your wife, which is really sad. But I
Yeah.
always I do like to say that too because I just know how many broken relationships there are, and so there's a sadness of the fact that not all marriages, even Christian
Yeah.
marriages, are like you and your wife, which is beautiful. But
Yeah.
it is unfortunate that there's that broken aspect too of just
Oh, sure. And
yeah.
I, I mean, it's not like our marriage is like perfect or something like that. It's just, I mean, we have been through some crazy things. I mean,
Yeah, I
you
would
know,
think so.
like I mean, I barely knew who she was when we got married. I mean, I had just, woken up from a coma and my dad had to walk me across the stage and stuff like that. And I, we had to fall in love again. And
Yeah.
we held on to each other through that. And getting married young is like, honestly, I'm a big fan of getting married young. I see a lot of the risks, but I see a lot more of the gains because you get to
Yeah.
do life, you get to build a life together. Because I think a lot of people that get married later have a much more difficult time pursuing personal oneness together because, like, I had to get my life established before I was going to get married. I had to accumulate all my stuff. I had to build my identity. Now I'm 30 years old. Now I'm 32. Now I'm whatever age. Now I'm looking
Yeah.
for a wife who's, if she's in her 30s, she's already got her identity. She's established this. She knows these people. They know her. And now
Yeah.
you're telling me you want to come together and build a unified life? Like that is going to be difficult. Much more difficult than, yeah, babe, we just graduated high school. Let's get married. Let's just go take on the
Yeah.
world together. I mean, one, you actually make more money if you're both working, and like you'll have more money to go pursue your goals and things. And but I mean that again, that's not the AI stuff. And
No, but
uh,
I think it's so funny because I think you experienced trauma and something very different than I did. So when it comes to the marriage discussion, I'm like, I'm not as my
yeah,
lament is way
yeah,
louder than my hope.
yeah.
I'm like,
Well,
do I want my daughter to get married when she's young? I don't know. That's more of
well,
my thing.
yeah. And I mean,
So I'm so
I mean,
grateful you can fill because in my brain there's a hole. My hole is like certain sufferings where it's like the Lord continually talks to it and I'm like, it's
yeah,
still not in the heart. But I
sure.
think with you, it's so cool. Like yes, you showed me your brain, but you've got this whole hole that's full of like God's perspective of looking at stuff. And I'm like, that's amazing, but that's not what my hole looks like.
Oh, well, that's kind. And yeah, I mean, I've just been really touched by the hand and grace of God through the last, um, I mean, my entire life, but especially in the last 10 years with the accident and everything. And yeah, I, and this is why. Oh, this is perfect, Danielle. This is why you've got to have a relationship with someone to be able to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, it's true.
Because
Yeah.
like if you you share this podcast with 100 people, thousands of people, whoever watches it, like they're gonna make some like conclusions derivative of whatever I've said in this podcast. But I'm
Yes, you
not
and
gonna
me
be
both.
there. But I'm not gonna be there to be able to respond. Like I'm not gonna be there, with them, every single person,
Yeah.
and be like, no, that's not what I meant, or no, that's not. Why? Because this right here is objectification. This is an object. Like I can't touch you, you can't touch me, I can't smell you. Like we are on screens. We
Yeah.
like once this is published or posted or shared, like it's objectified, and people can do whatever they want with it. With
Yes,
AI, they
it's true.
more.
Yeah.
They can do whatever they want with it, and that is part of the. I mean, it's a great example of why you have to be cautious about the objective world, and where you're placing your bets, and what you're getting, and what's true and what's not true, and so like that's why relationships are so important, because like I could say my opinion on marriage or my opinion on whatever, but you're not going to get my full opinion. You're not going to get my particular opinion. I'm an attorney, and attorneys have to navigate the facts of the particular case.
Yeah.
Every case is different. Every client's different. So bright line rules, bright line answers, bright line prescriptions are null and void. Like they're just not a thing, because everything is different. The world is so complicated, especially in the legal world. And so when it comes to like yeah, I said I think a lot of people should get married young, but that doesn't mean your kids should get married young. That doesn't mean like that it's not like this like grandiose rule. I'm like you said, I'm talking about the ideal. Like the
Right.
ideal.
And you're also talking based on your experience. Yeah.
And my experience, and here's why I'm saying that. Yeah, and obviously I haven't been able to get into everything about why I believe that and say that, but I don't think it applies to everybody. But I do think it is a lie that you have to get your life, you have to build your own individual life before you can get married. Like that doesn't make, for sure, and it doesn't make any economic sense either. Like oh sorry, it makes more economic sense to people, at least, but economically, two people working makes more money than one person working and trying to figure out their own life individually. And so
But
build
that's what you're saying is like AI, it has a formula for everything. It's the same formula for every single thing, the same thing it will say for every single question. Like if you ask a question and someone else asks the question, it'll give the same answer. But that's the uniqueness about relationship and human beings is that there's so much nuance with human
right,
beings, you
right,
know? And
yeah,
so if someone's talking to you like I'm talking to you now, you're not going to say like yes, you'll be truthful about the same things, but you're not going to, you adjust your demeanor or how you're talking or explaining something. Like you're not going to talk to me the same way you're going to talk to like a 5-year-old kid, you know?
sure,
So it's just
sure, right,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so it's like, yeah, these like podcasts and stuff are great at getting information out there, but I mean, you talk about, they call it keyboard confidence, where people, like, when they have this power over an object like social media, or like the internet, like it just creates such nastiness in the world. Like people can be so critical and so mean, and they just get this confidence about things. Why? because because it's just an object to them. It's just a thing that they can play with and toy with and criticize and do what they want. But if everybody criticized, you know, like President Donald Trump to his face the way they do online, I mean, it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah. It's true.
A- And like, there's such a difference, and this is part of the human presence aspect, being the imago Dei, being made in the image of God. Like there is a presence, a powerful presence when you're looking someone in the eyes, and whether or not you're gonna, you know, like whether you're gonna say anything to them at all, if you want to criticize them or not. You're much more likely to criticize them when you're looking at a screen about them or that shows them than you are to their face. Uh, and it it's a
Yeah.
dynamic people don't understand as much in the technocracy, the age of social media, of AI, like where we're so dominated by these objectified people that are on
Yes.
screen. Just,
Yeah.
we just, so yeah, like getting back to relationships, I'm glad you brought that up, Danielle, and tying it to AI and like, yeah, it's pre-programmed, it's got its algorithm, it's got its way to respond, but it doesn't really know you. It doesn't really know all about you, all the facts. I mean, like when I'm talking with my AI systems, like I have to keep uploading documents or things I've already written. Like every single time I want to interact with them, I'm like, read this article and then let's, read several of these articles I've written and let's talk about it. Whereas like my good friend Will, like he knows like everything I've written pretty much. Like we've talked about it and I don't have to like remind him of it every single time.
Yeah.
Like he knows, and he knows me. He knows about my depression. He knows about my struggles with those things, and just all of life, I guess. And so we're there for each other. We know each other, and we have this relationship. And again, with my wife, so like AI is a great tool, but it will always be an object. It'll never be a subject. It'll never have the capacity to suffer, and thereby it won't ever be able to transform. It won't ever carry moral weight. It won't know the risks of being wrong. It won't ever know what it's like to be present with someone and
Yeah.
human. And hopefully a lot of us have experienced that where we've had someone who was there for us when it was hard, and we know what that feels like, and we know that that need will never leave the world. Jesus said, "The poor you'll always have with you." Like
Yeah.
the need to be there for people will never go away as
Yeah.
long as they're
And not just the poor financially, the poor in spirit. People
right,
who are
right. Yeah,
really struggling.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been such a gift. Thank you for talking with me, and I have to say you're the kindest attorney I've met. I've met many attorneys, and I've respected many attorneys, but I can't say I have loved many attorneys. So,
Well,
you
hey,
are
I
a
know
very
attorneys get a pretty.
kind attorney. Please keep this in your professional life as well.
I am, yeah, I am.
So, but
Yeah,
thank you so much
thank
for
you.
this. This is a gift. It was a good conversation. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. And if you ever want to talk more, I'm happy to. It was really cool to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you. Have a good day.
Yep, blessings. Bye bye.